Extra, extra, reading the issue. Raw news, unapologetic, no tissue. Catch the wave, the flow first certain. Nothing pull you in like a Pittsburgh current. Free from influence, nothing less than. No flexing, aim for aggression. We cover news, politics, art forms, and entertainment that comes in all sources.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Pittsburgh Current Pants Optional Podcast today. We are going to be talking with the most honorable Bethany Hallam, Allegheny County Councilor at Large, about some things going on with your June 2nd primary. But before I do, I want to remind you that the newest electronic edition of the Pittsburgh Current is available for download on our website or in your inbox. We have the cover this week is a very nice photo that should be popping up, but it's not, taken by our own Jake Mislivchik. And we have a story by Amanda Reed on the intermission currently going on in the cultural district, and how they're hoping to come out of that, as well as on the website, Jake has a story this week about how Liberty Magic is returning tonight at 7:30 for a virtual magic show. So be sure to check that out. Yes, Bethany, I see you very excited about that over there.
Wow.
I know. And I also want to congratulate our members of our staff and contributors who were nominated as finalists for the Golden Quill Awards for the Western Press Club of Western PA. Jake, the aforementioned Jake Mislivchik, was nominated in the category of Best Photo Essay. Margaret Welsh is for Best Feature. Rebecca Addison for Science and Technology Reporting, and very proud of Rob Rogers. Return of Brute on Grant was also nominated for a Golden Quill. So congratulations to those folks. And those awards will be handed out sometime this fall, I guess. I don't know. So that's all.
Just you know Rebecca Addison's my cousin, right?
I do know that Rebecca Addison is your cousin, Bethany Hallam. Actually, yeah, I've not talked to you about it. I got all the inside scoop on you. That's for sure. Nothing that hasn't been in the papers, of course. So, anyway, Bethany is with us today because we're going to talk about some things that happened in the last week dealing with the upcoming June 2nd primary, as well as, of course, being on county council and a member of the jail oversight board. Bethany is also a member of the Allegheny County Board of Elections. Is that correct, Bethany? I have that title correct? Most honorable.
You have that correct.
Awesome. And so there was a meeting yesterday, and we'll start there and then work back to the things that happened earlier in the week. So obviously there's a concern from workers who work the polls on election day. They're concerned about their safety, about their health, etc. So obviously some kind of thing had to happen, but you can explain a little more. But in a nutshell, what the proposal, which has to be signed off by the Department of State, I believe, basically the county wants to consolidate 60% of polling places in the county.
No, way more than that. So
it is more than.
Yeah, Act 12 actually allows us already to, as a county, to consolidate up to 60% of our polling locations. The resolution asks for permission to take it further because 60% of 1,323 polling locations, I mean, math is not always my forte, but it's like 600. So yeah. What the resolution asks is for permission to consolidate even further down to 138.
Right. So 138, and how many do we currently have?
1,323.
Okay, and so let's talk about I think one of the major issues is the way that this is. I mean, there's no way to fairly divide up that few polling places anyway. But basically, every municipality is going to get one. Is that correct? The city of Pittsburgh will get how many?
9, one for each city council district.
Right, one for each council district, and so take me through that a little bit. Obviously, I know from talking to you before and from your comments, us talking about it a little bit before the show. This is obviously not something you agree with. What did you go in there? Like, what would be a good solve to this problem in your mind?
So I think the consolidation of 60% of polling locations is something that's a more feasible and equitable solution, because we would then have had time to prepare for this. Instead, we're less than, I don't even know the count now, we're less than 50 days out from election day. Oh. And so even to consolidate in any form at this time, I would argue is way too little time to be able to do that. But also, this resolution, the language of it makes it seem as if every municipality is equal, as if every city council
That's
district
correct.
is equal, but they are not. And anybody who's been around the county in any capacity knows that. We have some municipalities that are less than 1 square mile in total area, and we have some that are almost 20 square miles.
Right.
We have some municipalities where in the whole municipality there's only a few hundred registered voters, and we have other municipalities that have tens of thousands of registered voters.
So for example, there would be one in, say,
Westview,
someplace like that, and then there would also only be one in Monroeville, which doesn't really obviously balance out the numbers there. Yeah, that's so it is actually more than 85% of the polling places.
Did you have a calculator?
I did.
Yeah, I knew it.
A little math for you, Bethany. You didn't come prepared. Just kidding. So that this almost. I know that God forbid we say this because this goes to my next point. Voting in favor of this proposal yesterday was Allegheny County Chief Executive Rich Fitzgerald and Allegheny County Councilperson at Large Republican Sam DeMarco voted in favor of this.
Correct.
So that kind of leads. I'm not saying anything about anybody's political whatever, but 4 years ago or whatever it was, 6 years ago, whenever it was that we were battling against laws that were intentionally limiting voter access. This really feels like a move at controlling voter access. Now, even if that's an unintended possibility, you got to be worried about that. There are people who are not going to be able to vote on election day because, number one, they're either not going to know where to go, or number two, they're not going to have a way to get there.
Exactly. And so many people are used to walking out their front door on election day, walking down the street to their church or fire station or elementary school and voting. And for some people, they've been doing that for decades at their same polling location. And so a big concern of mine is that people are going to go to that polling location that they're voted at it for every election in their voting lifetime. And when they see the polls close, they're going to turn around and go home, even if there's signage on the door. So they did clarify yesterday that they will be sending a letter to every registered voter of their new polling location and posting signage on the doors of each original polling location. But I know so many people that it's hard for them to get to a minute out of their day to go and vote. Lots of, young families bringing young children along to do so. And so it's hard enough for those people to get to their original poll. They show up, see it's closed. How many of those people are going to turn around and go home and not exercise their right to vote? That's definitely a concern. If even one single voter is disenfranchised, we have lost.
Yeah. And let's take, for example, let's take, and you may have a better example, but let's take Council District 9. And the reason I take Council District 9 is because there are a number of people that are people who struggle financially, who struggle economically. It's also a very large district, and it's also, there's a block of African American voters in that district. So my thought would be, okay, so where are you going to put that? So people who maybe don't have a car, and now we know that, we don't know what public transportation will look like on June 2nd. So so we're not only talking about making it difficult for, the average person. This is going to make it difficult for people who have to take 3 buses to buy groceries. So we're talking about that kind of an issue, and now you're going to make them, go somewhere else to vote. And again, doing someplace different isn't the issue. It's the variety that you have. And so who's going to decide where these go in each district?
So after the state gives the elections division, they were supposed to have a call today. I don't know the results of that call. I wasn't invited. But after if they get permission from the state, they will immediately have elections division's workers start calling each municipality. I know one of my friends is on the Ross Township Board of Commissioners, and they were discussing it at one of their calls today. And where are we going to put this? So the suggestion in the resolution is that it will be at every municipal building, but lots of municipal buildings can't handle thousands of voters, nor do they want it. For example, if they want to offer up a school, does the school want to have to deal with the sanitizing it afterwards? And a concern of mine is, I know I live in Ross Township. Our municipal building has the police station is located at the same place as the municipal building. How many people are going to receive their letter, tell them to go vote at their municipal building? They pull up to the municipal building and the police are there. So we're talking about people who maybe have a suspended license, who maybe have a warrant out for whatever reason, people who are on probation and parole, people who have had negative experiences with law enforcement in the past. We need to be talking about all of these folks too, who aren't comfortable showing up and voting at a police station on election day.
It would seem Ross is a good example because it just gives you the idea of, okay, what are they thinking? So I understand the why. I understand why we need to consolidate, but then you think like, are they even thinking that you're okay? So now everybody in Ross Township, and you may know how many voters that is, but a lot. It's a lot of voters. So are they going to take special? Like, are there going to be more than the normal 4 booths, that there usually are? I mean, is a place like the mall, something like that, some kind of alternate decision, or some kind of alternate location? Is that a possibility? And we just don't know, right? I mean, do they have a concrete plan, or is the municipal building in each municipality, that is the plan?
Yeah, so that's what the resolution outlines, and they mentioned at the Board of Elections meeting yesterday that they will be reaching out to each municipality and asking them where. Because we need to figure out the where soon so that we can get those letters out and let people know where to vote.
Right. Because if you're going to do this, it has to be like, they have to be almost like mega sites. They have to be like, you can't just have it run like, you're running it in a cafeteria at a local school. I mean, it has to be a sizable undertaking. If not, that is certainly, like I said, that's voter disruption, because people aren't going to, how long are they going to stand in line with other people?
In a presidential primary, right? And I understand the argument that, okay, it's not a contested presidential primary, but we have lots of down ballot contested primary races right now that I'm concerned about. And so is the county maybe taking this less seriously because it's not a contested presidential primary? I sure hope not, because these, I'm a big, all politics is local, and these local races are really what are going to affect your life a lot more than who's sitting in the White House. So we need to be making sure that these are fair and accessible elections. We need to be removing barriers for people to vote, not creating more barriers. And that's a transportation issue too. I can't take a bus from my house to my municipal building. I can't do that. You talk about somewhere like McKeesport, where lots of folks don't have access to public transportation to get anywhere, let alone to their municipal building. It's not like that was, that whenever Port Authority designs their routes, they don't necessarily have making sure everybody can get to their municipal building into front of their mind, because it's typically not somewhere that everyone goes to. So it's not always the most accessible place.
Right. Yeah. A lot of residents may not know where their municipal building is.
Right. And that was one of the arguments that was made, was that everyone knows where their municipal building is. But again, I bet that's not true.
Yeah, it feels like voter disruption. Again, I know there's a need, but this just seems to be a plan that wasn't really thought out thoroughly.
And that's my biggest concern. For example, I saw the language as a Board of Elections member. My first view of the language of the resolution was a few hours prior to the meeting.
Really?
So why was I not consulted about this as a member of the Board of Elections, right? Why was, Sam DeMarco not consulted on it as a member of the Board of Elections? Why were each municipalities not consulted on this prior to its introduction and adoption? I mean, there's just so many, this feels very rushed. I think that in general, we have way too many polling locations in Allegheny County. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with you on that 1,323, that's a lot. So in normal times, consolidation of polling locations is something that should have been addressed years ago, with lots of thought put into place to make sure, again, that everyone has equal access, that there are fair numbers of people per location, that we're not having thousands of people at one location and 10 at another, And so this just feels very rushed. And again, it makes me nervous, very nervous for any candidate that's on the ballot right now. I mean, we've talked before
Right.
about how hard it is to campaign in times of a global pandemic.
Right.
And with the election date being changed from April 28th to June 2nd, most campaigns had budgeted till April 28th. And then to suddenly have additional months placed on that they need to be able to survive financially throughout and can't knock any doors
Right.
because nobody's going outside. We're all quarantined. So there's already so many obstacles in place for the candidates. And now we're adding additional obstacles and adding obstacles for every single voter as well.
Right. And let's break that down a little bit. I mean, let's talk progressive to progressive, Bethany, if we may.
Yes, we always can, Charlie.
There are some problematic races out there that, well, in one you have no incumbent, but you have the endorsed candidate. We're talking about in the South Hills. We're talking about Heather Cass getting the. You go to our site. Go to Bethany's Twitter.
Don't get me started on this today, Charlie. I was having a good day. Don't get me started on that.
Well, we don't have to get into the. She made some. She's made some very. Forget about anti-progressive. I mean, just anti-dem.
Anti-people.
Sort of the core, right? Anti-people. The kind of the core beliefs, and I'm sure everybody, a lot of people, most people who are watching this probably know that story. But you have that race. You have Jessica Benham, who's been running since last fall, and I would think with the nomination, that's going to make that race very tight. They're going to be campaigning right up until the day. So, any sort of change, I would think it's going to favor incumbents. It's going to favor endorsed candidates. Although, again, we've talked about the effectiveness of that nowadays. But if you have a decreased voter turnout, I think then that maybe comes into play a little more. So there are, like I said, in the Summer Lee race, and
her opponent was endorsed by the county executive and the Democratic Party,
who apparently was at the head of drafting this plan, as you are. I assume that that's where it came from. It came from either Fitzgerald or at Fitzgerald's direction, because that's where it came from, right? He's the third member on the board, so that's where
he is the chair of the Board of Elections,
right? So it seems problematic, and it seems like you hope there are unintended consequences. But in this county, as you know, everything becomes political. And so I think there's also a worry when this starts filtering out and getting out to people. I think people are going to be like, hey, wait, where am I going to have to go to vote? I mean, so I think it's problematic just from an optics standpoint. Forget about just the pure logistics of the whole thing.
I've talked to voters. I mean, I've been doing a lot of phone bankings for candidates who have contested primaries, Summer Lee and Jessica Benham and Emily Kincaid. And am I missing someone?
Probably, but
yeah,
but yes.
Okay. But I've been doing phone banking, and I've talked to voters who didn't even know that election day was changed. Voters who didn't even know that you're allowed to mail and vote as of this election. I've talked to people who do not, and this isn't one or two folks. This is multiple people who are telling us that they didn't even they haven't seen any of the advertisements.
Right.
So you're telling me that people who don't even know that they're not supposed to vote on April 28th are now going to show up to vote on June 2nd and at a new location, potentially stand in line for hours.
Right.
It seems ludicrous to me. There's a better way to do this. And I'm upset that this is what the final plan is. So I'm hoping. I haven't, again, heard an update from what the Department of State has said on this. In yesterday's meeting, the Elections Division predicted that they would have an answer today and would start calling municipalities today. I'm assuming that the state approved the plan because they seemed very confident that was going to happen.
But a lot of legwork could have and probably should have been done already.
That is exactly my point. When we had a Board of Elections meeting months ago, pre-coronavirus, we had talked about hundreds of thousands of dollars that were set aside for advertisement about mail-in voting. So when we're talking to folks who still have no idea that that's a thing, we have a problem in our marketing project. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm concerned about, is if we can't even let people know of the date that an election has changed to, how are we going to let them know of all these different provisions that are in place? Are we going to require that every voter show up with a mask? We have enough PPEs for all of the poll workers. So we do know that the county has acquired, I think it was 6,700 sets of masks and gloves, hand sanitizer, 2 to 3 hand sanitizers for every polling location, and the warehouse, because remember, all of those mail-in ballots are being
Right.
housed at one warehouse.
Right.
And so we have PPEs for the workers, but what about the people standing in line? Am I going to be standing next to somebody who's coughing all over me while I'm waiting in line for 2 hours on election day?
Probably. I mean, it's more than likely. It's more than likely that you're going to be standing in a line with somebody within, however, and look, 6 feet. I doubt that. I doubt that parameter very much. But there's a good chance that somebody in that line with you, or somebody who, and again, I know they're going to sanitize the machines probably in between, but the fact is you don't know that, and you're going to be in line with people who have COVID-19, and
and remember, we also have brand new voting machines that most people have never been able to see yet, including lots of poll workers. So that's definitely a concern of mine as well. We had only trained 1,600 poll workers prior to the shutdown order. So all of the rest of our poll worker trainings were canceled. If you remember, the county was hosting dozens of voting machine demonstrations all around the county. Those were all canceled because of the stay-at-home order. So not only do we have the coronavirus aspect, but we also have the fact that how many people even know that we have brand new paper ballot machines that we're going to be voting with?
Right. And there are people that are going to, it doesn't matter what the new machine is. People freak out when they see something different. I remember it was 20 years ago, the first time I ever voted in the city of Pittsburgh. I walked in on the south side, and there was this huge wall of a goddamn punch ballot. I'm like, what the hell is this? And so everybody gets overwhelmed when they see something new like that. So it's gonna be hard anyway, and it just feels like this is making it harder when there are other options out there. And so now let's go back a little bit to earlier in the week. So let me talk about the legislation first, but then I want to talk about something maybe a little behind the scenes.
Whatever you want, Charlie, I'm in.
Appreciate it. Appreciate you, Bethany Hallam. You are a friend of Current.
I am.
Fuck.
Everybody give the Current all your money. These are hard times for everyone right now. Please.
Thank you. And actually, we are going to talk about a new program at the end. Jake, get that flyer up and ready. Don't show it yet.
Hi, Jake.
I can't see him. It just says Jake on the screen, so I don't know.
Me too. That's all I see.
He's in there somewhere. So you introduced legislation earlier this week, and you can go into the detail, but the biggest thing in there for my takeaway is basically we're going to mail you a mail-in ballot. You're also going to put a self-addressed stamped envelope in there. So it's really, you take it out of your mailbox, you put it back in your mailbox.
Yep.
And so you introduce that. And
the next day, the county executive said it was happening.
Yes. Yeah. And so,
but you're in for democracy.
Yeah. And your legislation did go to committee so that's what I want to talk about.
I'm rolling my eyes a little bit. I don't know.
I know. Well, that's what I want to get to a couple things, my observations of that situation as well as others. But talk a little bit about your legislation and sort of what you wanted to do, what's going to happen, and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually pretty simple. What it said was that every registered voter in Allegheny County will receive a mail-in ballot application with prepaid postage. And then when their ballot is sent to them, they will receive the ballot with prepaid postage as well. That all applications will be sent out by the county by May 8th was the deadline that the legislation gave. And so what happened, I mean, to me, that's a no-brainer, right? I know that like a week or two prior, the county executive had released a statement calling on the state to do mandatory mail-in voting so that we didn't have to open any polling locations. I'm a big fan of mail-in voting. I know a lot of people aren't, but to me, any obstacles you can remove from people, even if that is getting in their car and having to go to their polling location, removing an obstacle. So, so I introduced that legislation. I even did diligence, and I called the executive and let him know I was going to be introducing this prior to the agenda out so that he had a heads up, right?
Yeah.
Team building. And so I let him know that I was going to do, and he was supportive of it. So because of that, I just assumed then this was a no-brainer. This was going to pass, right? The Democrats have a 12-3 majority on county council. The only real divide is, I guess, like progressives versus more conservative Democrats, right? That's really where it ends up. So if we have the backing of a county executive and the progressive members of council for a piece of legislation, it seemed it was going to be successful. And so we introduced it, and then we motioned to waive the second reading. Because it's such a timely ordinance, we wanted to make sure that we could do it immediately. So in normal times, legislation gets introduced, the president of council sends it to a committee, it gets worked on, amended, all changes are made in committee, and then it comes out of committee and for a full vote at council, okay? So you can waive the second reading, and with a 2/3 vote, which would be 10 council, you can, we're voting on this now, and you remember legislation we passed for the conversion therapy ban.
Yes.
Right. So anyways, we tried to do that, and it was Liv Bennett and myself and no one else with us to pass that legislation. So the legislation didn't fail. The waiving of the second reading failed, which meant that it went to committee. Is that a good backstory?
It is. Okay, it is, and it sets up very nicely my question. So it's not like waiving the second reading is an odd thing. I mean, it happens all the time. It happened on Tuesday to something else 2 weeks ago or 3. Well, I don't even know how long ago it was now. When you introduced legislation, it was not waived for second reading, and every other piece of legislation I feel was waived for second reading.
Not if it has my name on it, apparently.
Yeah. Well, so that's what I want to ask you. Yeah. So you ran on. It's kind of probably generic to say you ran on change, but you did. You ran on open government, on cleaning up government, on kind of bringing government back to the people, bringing it like, getting them more involved and so forth.
As it should be, and should have always been. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, you think there were people on there long enough that would have kind of thought, oh, you know what? I think we're doing this shit wrong. Let's switch it up. Let's switch it up and do the right thing for once. But you, Liv Bennett, and some others, and even on Pittsburgh City Council, we see the same thing. So you're trying to do something. You're trying to do the right thing. Number one, you're trying to do something different, and people apparently don't like different. So what I want to ask you is, so the other legislation a couple of weeks ago was, of course, legislation that would allow the county to basically release a large number of incarcerated individuals from the Allegheny County Jail, as well as the, I believe, like the, let's say, halfway house, for lack of a better word. I think people understand that word.
Alternative housing facility.
Alternative housing facility, yes.
Which you, by the way, wrote a great article about ACTA the other day, so let's plug that too.
Yeah, no, and it's right. And then the union came out later that day that there are some heavy issues there. So that's, maybe if we have time, we'll maybe get into that a little bit. Because I'm interested on your take on that stuff too. I already know your take, but other people might be interested. Do you feel like this is personal more than it's just business? I mean, or does it ever get to that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think anybody who thinks that there isn't some personal things that go into political decisions doesn't know what they're talking about. Right. You see it at all levels of government. I mean, county council isn't the only one. You see it locally, you see it on school boards, you see it at the federal level, you see it at the state level, right? So I definitely think it's personal. And I think something that I've seen is that when people read a piece of legislation, meaning other members of council, and they see that it's me and Liv Bennett sponsoring it, even if they think it sounds like a great idea, in their head, they're like, oh, this must be some of that progressive shit. I don't know if I should support this, And so even if they read through it,
right?
Yeah, exactly. And so I definitely see a lot of that. And my biggest, and this is like an overarching concern to answer your question, is that what I keep hearing, and I'm so sick and tired of hearing this, is, oh, well, we can't do that. That's not up to us. We don't have the authority to do that. But here's the thing. There's been Did we have the authority to tell licensed medical professionals what they can do in regards to the conversion therapy ban?
Right.
Y'all had no problem passing that. I
Right.
voted for it as well. The city of Pittsburgh with their paid sick leave legislation, everybody told them, you can't do this.
Right.
This will never hold up in court. And here we are years later at the beginning of a global pandemic. It gets implemented after surviving a fight
Right.
with the Supreme Court. So I am of the mindset we have to try. I was elected to do the best job that I possibly can to represent my constituents, to stand up for them, to fight for them tooth and nail every single day. And I'm not going to stop doing that, even when other members of council can't seem to find the courage to do so themselves. And so I definitely have seen a lot of that. They love to introduce proclamations. They love to pass symbolic motions of council, but when it comes to actually implementing ordinances, mandatory legislation, it's like, oh, I don't think we can do that. They always tell me, oh, you can introduce that as a motion. What's the point? Why do you run for office to do symbolic motions and proclamations? I mean, why are you here? Let's pass some legislation. Let's make a change. That's what we were elected to do. People don't go and vote for who they prefer to pass the most exciting symbolic motions.
Right.
They vote for you to pass legislation, and we have done so little of that. And it's very frustrating because it's not despite our attempts, it's just the fact that it's hard to find, I need 8 allies to accomplish anything. And so, great, we passed the jail ordinance, got turned into a motion, right? The rent abatement, rent freeze got turned into a motion, right? They passed the motion asking the state to mandate mail-in balloting, which we knew wasn't going to happen, right? So it's like, what is the point of that? And it is so frustrating to me because I'm one of those people where I always think that if I present a valid, rational argument, that I can potentially change your mind. I mean, I know there's some far right wingers out there who I'm never going to change their perspective on things, and I get that. But I have 12 Democrats on council, and you're telling me there's not 8 of them who are willing to try to fight for their constituents? That's so disappointing to me. And you know what it says? It says we're going to have a busy next year primarying a lot of those people on council.
And that's the thing. And anybody who doesn't think that, that if anybody there thinks their seat is safe, I mean, that's just
no one is safe in Allegheny County. If you haven't learned that over the past couple of years, you better wake up and pay attention.
You're exactly right. And what gets me is the other thing that you kind of hit on this. One of the other things that you ran on was council is a rubber stamp. I wish it was a better word than rubber stamp. That seems too old school. But basically,
it's a great visual.
Yeah, there are actually some terms, but I don't want to use them. But that council is a rubber stamp for the county executive, and so in just your short, what is this? 4 months, right?
It feels like 10 years, Charlie.
It feels like you've been there. It feels like you've had at least your first 18 months in office because you've gotten in there, you've mixed it up some, but that was something that you said you were going to and wanted to change. And you literally, I don't know, maybe I want to just sort of for the folks, motion of council is basically it's not binding, but it's, oh, hey, we strongly recommend that if you strongly recommend, then just pass it. And I've covered more city council over the years than I have county council, but I'm sure county council has it too. But city council has dozens and if not hundreds of legislation of laws on the books that have never been enforced, that were never enforceable. But they do that, and they did that because let's see if we can get it done. They thought it was important to do. And there are tons of laws, I'm sure, on the county books as well that just have never been enforced. You're supposed to, but they haven't been enforced. And city council the city of Pittsburgh has a ton of that. And so, it's something that councils do. And I don't know if there was ever I don't know. I feel like the people were told when this was new. I mean, I don't know. I was there when the first time this council met 20 years ago or whatever. 20 years ago now.
That was my opponent.
What's that? He was there. He looked a little younger. He looked a little more. Actually, he did not look any more spry than he did when he left. But John's a good dude. It's just, but have some political courage. And I'm not just talking about John DeFazio. I'm talking about a lot of people on there. very good case in point, I think, is so you are the chairperson of the
Appointment review committee.
appointment review committee, right? So all the boards and so forth around the county have members, and so you are you run that committee, and you've said right after, and I knew that was a committee you wanted, because you wanted to make sure that the best people were on there, and I assume that it's generally gone well up until the last couple of weeks. So what seems like a very easy decision to me, you have a jail oversight board member who hasn't been to a meeting in 5 years, while at the same time attended all the meetings for the other board that the person was on.
It was up for 2 appointments at the same time to both of the boards.
And on your committee, you voted to approve her reappointment to the other committee, but because she hadn't attended a meeting in 5 years, and I'm laughing because it sounds like if you don't show up at anything for 5 years, if you don't show up at your bowling league for 5 years, and all of a sudden, you're like, oh, I want back in, it just doesn't make sense. So rightly so, you talked it over. It was thought out, and then a recommendation was made to not reappoint, if that's the correct term to say, recommendation. But so you recommended they not reappoint this person. Easy. That apparently didn't sit well. Let's just start and say, I'm assuming it didn't sit well with the person. Let's say that they went to the county executive, or the county didn't sit well with the county executive. So there's starting to be some campaigning behind the scenes and promises that, this person, she'll come to every meeting, and if she ever misses one, she'll resign and so forth. But it really seems like a no-brainer, even if it's not a no-brainer, even if people are like, look, this person has served over the last 20 years and et cetera, and you say, well, let's give them another chance. I mean, you can talk that out, but this was a cut and dried, your committee voted, no, we don't recommend. So some phone banking happened, and so by the time the next Tuesday comes around, the meeting comes around, it's time to vote on the appointments, reappointments. Everyone on your not everyone on your committee, but most of the people on your committee changed their vote.
Council as a whole is actually on the appointment review committee.
Okay, so they're on the whole thing. All right, so you had a majority, and by Tuesday, what day was the hearing? Was the hearing like a Thursday or something? Or
when it was gone.
Yeah, right. By Tuesday, you're done. It's gone, and and it was almost like a lot of them read off the same script about how, why they changed their mind and so forth. And I don't know, it seems, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it's hard to look at the situation and say that, it's not being done just because it's you.
I had council members who told me that they received a phone call from the county executive telling them to give her a chance. Yeah. And my thing was, we gave her a second chance. The last time that she was appointed to the seat was 4 years ago. Okay. Right. And she hadn't attended any meetings prior to that appointment as well. So she had multiple chances. This isn't a second chance. I'm a big fan of giving people second chances. Right. This isn't a third chance or a fourth chance. This is a fifth chance to show up once a month for not even an hour oftentimes. Right. So if you can't make that commitment, you don't deserve this seat. There are 1.3 million people in Allegheny County who would love to help protect the health and well-being of those incarcerated in Allegheny County. Right. And so you're telling me that this is the best person that exists for this job? Right. And the other thing is, the county executive gets to pick, like, he's the one who puts the appointments forth. So if she were to get denied, he gets to pick the next person. It's not like Bethany gets to put whoever she wants on there. Right. Yeah. So that I can't help but feel that that's personal, right? Because you get to pick someone else. If you put anyone in the whole world forward for this, I don't have 5 years of attendance records to use against them. Yeah. So it just seems, I can't understand. And then, I mean, literally the day, this is the funny part about this, if we want to laugh. So the day that this all happened, and the county executive and the person herself and all of members of council said, well, she told me she's going to show up now. we actually had a vote that day for the Jail Oversight Board. We didn't meet, but we were voting because they had canceled the April meeting.
Right.
And I argued that that was actually not allowed to do. You would have to take a vote for that. So we actually had a vote by email where you had like 4 hours to submit your vote.
Right.
She didn't vote. Every single other person did, but she didn't.
Right.
So literally the day that she gets put back on this board, she didn't vote. Like, how?
Maybe you didn't know what day maybe the second chance didn't go into effect until like a week later. You don't know.
Yeah, I didn't have the deadline on that apparently. But that's my thing is I ask every single person that comes through the appointment review committee 2 questions.
Right.
Okay. If it is a new appointment, I ask them if they foresee any potential conflicts of interest to serving on this board or authority. Okay. And then anybody who's up for a reappointment, I ask them what percentage of meetings have you attended in your time on this board or authority? So I ask every single person the same question. I am an equal opportunity appointer.
Right.
So like everyone has asked this question and she answered, I've attended 80% of the meetings. Well, actually, let me pull my attendance sheet out because it's actually 8. You attended 8% of the meetings since you've been on this board. Why do you deserve this seat over someone who has dedicated their life to fighting against injustices at the Allegheny County Jail and alternative housing facilities? Why do you deserve this seat when there are so many other people who are willing to make the time to participate in the board they're appointed to? Why are you putting your name up for 2 boards if you can't show up to one of them?
Yeah.
No, like you can have your other one. Like we passed you unanimously for that. Please go continue doing the great job that you're doing there and the great work that you're doing. Because everyone I talked to said this lady is a nice person, but at the end of the day, all of those same people told me, but she doesn't show up.
Right.
So I was very frustrated with that. I was most frustrated with the people who from one day to the next in a matter of less than a week switched their votes. Because nothing changed. You were presented all the facts in the committee meeting and you voted not to approve her based off those facts. And then all it takes is a call from the county executive. Doesn't that just reinforce the rubber stamp argument that we make all the time about county council?
Right.
All of those same people who flip-flopped on their votes are the ones who told me they were so excited that myself and Liv Bennett were on council and we're going to make it useful. Have it do something for once. And now here they are resorting to the same old methods because that's what they know. And it's really disgusting to me. It's upsetting more so than anything because I really believed a lot of people when they told me they were ready for a change. But actions speak louder than words. Believe people when they show you who they are.
Right.
And people on council have been showing me who they are every single day since I've been sworn in on January 2nd. So I believe them.
So I'm actually getting a wrap it up text, but I actually have 2 more. Well, one final question on the vote by mail. We'll wrap up with that, but I want to bring up that it's something that I've thought about and something that I hear it a lot. Like I've heard it said to you in conversation with you. It's said like, everybody deserves a second chance. Sometimes it feels like they're specifically pointing that at you, like, sure. Oh, Bethany, you got a second chance. Where would you be without your second chance? And
I got a second chance because I worked my ass off.
But it's almost like they play that card against you a lot. And that happened again, we're not going to get into that whole situation, but it happened before, and it just seems is that something that is getting pretty old? I got to think it's getting pretty old for you, even if you continue to handle yourself with the grace and that you always do in these situations. Charlie. But it's got to be pissing you off because it always comes out that somebody always mentions about how important everyone gets a second chance. And it's very important. And it's always like, right, Bethany?
Yeah, until it comes to voting about legislation about protecting people who are incarcerated right now. Until it comes to protecting sex workers from having consensual adult sex with other people and ending up in jail because of that. Right. Until it comes to people who abuse drugs or alcohol, you want to say second chances for someone who doesn't show up for a board. But when it comes to the criminal justice reform that everybody wants to act like they're an advocate for, where are you on that? So, I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, am I sick and tired of hearing it? But the thing is, I've had a life, right? So there is nothing that these establishment folks can do or say to me that I haven't had said to me or done to me. So I mean, try your best shot. I it bothers them a lot more than it bothers me.
Right.
So, I mean, if that's what helps them sleep at night, go ahead, babe.
So we have a question that I lost, but the gist of it was, what do we need to do to get the word out? So what are the best ways to get the word out about mail-in balloting? Is it more mail? Is it billboards? What's the plan?
Do they mean like what should the county do, or like what can people do?
I think they're saying what can officially be done by the county or the state, whomever. But yeah, they're looking at what would
so one of the biggest concerns about that, I think I mentioned earlier, is that, months ago we talked at a Board of Elections meeting, again pre-COVID-19. We had hundreds of thousands of dollars that were set aside in a marketing budget for letting people know about mail-in voting. Okay. Right. So the problem is that lots of that money was put towards ads in like the DMV, which is shut down.
Right.
Ads on public transportation, which they've consolidated routes and people aren't using public transportation like they used to be. Ads in movies at the movie theaters, which we go to the movies right now. You know what I mean? So whenever everything changed, and I totally understand. I mean, COVID-19 has brought forth a lot of situations that, again, nobody was prepared for. I don't care if you've been in elected office for 20, 30 years, or if this is your first year in office. Nobody could have foreseen the scope of this affecting us. But the problem is that as soon as we knew that there was going to be an issue here, we needed to start talking about the election day, right? And so instead of waiting until we're a little over a month away from the election, and now we're going to scramble. What?
Sorry.
Was that you?
I was checking Facebook and you started talking from 2 minutes ago. I'm sorry. I was checking questions.
No, you can check questions. That's fine. I just thought I heard my voice or your
You did.
voice.
No, yeah, but when I checked questions, it started the thing. So
I knew I enjoyed that voice. But yeah, really. So what we can do for mail-in voting, I mean, the county needs to adjust their marketing plan. State Representative Summer Lee just posted on Facebook the other day that she was watching TV literally a couple days ago and saw an ad on TV from the county advertising the April 28th election.
Really?
Just a couple days ago. And now for everybody watching, the election is no longer on April 28th. It is on June 2nd.
Yes. Do not.
So the fact that we have known that for quite some time now, and that was the first time. I haven't seen a single ad from the county. I don't know if you have seen any ads about mail-in voting from the county.
We ran some earlier in the year, and then of course when it hit us and we couldn't, we're not publishing a print version anymore. So but but that hits our readership. But there are a lot of people out there who don't read our paper. Shame on you. But they
if you're not reading the Pittsburgh Current, what's wrong?
But I understand that. But so I understand that they want to spread out. But but I will say this. That's the only reason is because we run them. And so, yeah.
So think of all the folks who, again, unfortunately do not read the Pittsburgh Current, right? We have a very elderly population in Allegheny County, right? So folks who aren't on social media, most of my information, it comes from Twitter and Facebook, And so we are helping each other by sharing information on there. And the state has sent a postcard to everyone's house about mail-in ballot. I don't know if you got yours, but I got a postcard from the state. And it was just addressed to like residents and our address, so it was one for the whole house. So you're not duplicating efforts, And so I'm worried that a lot of folks aren't getting this messaging, So what can we do? I mean, I know the candidates who are running in elections in this primary have been doing a lot of phone banking surrounding mail-in balloting. So that's great. I challenge everybody to call 5 friends, especially if you have, elderly friends or young friends who are usually non-voters.
Yeah.
Or, I challenge everybody to call 5 people and let them know, hey, you can go on votespa.com and you can request your mail-in ballot. Or the county is mailing every registered voter an application.
Right.
And that will happen by May 7th.
And that's the thing when you talk about candidates trying to get the word out. So they already can't campaign like they normally would campaign. They've got to change up that. And now they're also tasked with making sure people know how they can vote. And this it's going to be what was shaping. Well, it's going to be. We all knew it was going to be an interesting election year. We just didn't think it would be because of something like this. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see, like, I know lots of us are watching more Netflix now than we ever have, you know? I'd love to see the county advertising on Netflix. A lot of people I know are playing, you know, video games or games on their phone more often than they used to because they're at home with a lot of time. Put some ads on there, you know, put some paid ads on like some cell phone games.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to get creative with this because every single decision that's made, you know, in government is the result of an election, right? And so if you're not happy with the fact that you're not being informed by your elected officials, the only way that you can change that is the vote. So, you know, it really truly is the cornerstone of our democracy. And so if people don't know where to vote or how to vote or even when to vote, we have a big, big problem on our hands. And so we need to do whatever we can. And I think there's so much more that can be done. You know, nobody asked for my opinion about marketing plans for.
What are you, an elected official? Why would they ask you?
Charlie, oftentimes I find my information about the county out from you. So
really?
Thank you for that. Yeah. So
anything I can do.
Yeah.
Split that big check with me.
Oh yes, almost $11,000 a year. Hey, I'm unemployed right now though, so
it's pretty good. Bethany Hallam, thank you so much for popping on at the last minute. Like I said, this all just kind of went down yesterday, so we thought let's have a chat about this. So yes, check out. You should really follow Bethany on Twitter because if you want to know what's going on in the county, she shares. She tells what's going on. She's not afraid to do
I try to. I think the transparency is so important, and we don't see enough of it.
Right. Bethany, thank you so much for coming on today. Before we go, though, Jake, plenty of time. Hope you got that flyer ready. We are having a promotion right now, and it's a promotion called Space for All. And what Space for All is, we're going to larger businesses, corporations, et cetera, and we're giving them an opportunity to buy advertisement space on any of our products on our digital edition, our website, and so forth. For that price, you not only get an ad for yourself, you are buying an ad for a smaller business who doesn't have the advertising budget. A business is struggling now because of COVID-19. And you can pick the business, or we'll hook you up with a business or a nonprofit. So it's called the Space for All campaign. If you want more information, you can email Bethany Rue, not Bethany Hallam. She'll want the commission. Bethany at PittsburghCurrent.com. Bethany at PittsburghCurrent.com, and she will get you all set up. And again, so the prices there are our prices. We've even reduced our prices from normal because this isn't a normal time. So buy an ad for yourself, give one to a friend who's struggling right now. So check it out. Again, Bethany at PittsburghCurrent.com if you're interested in that. We will be back next week. We don't know how many of these podcasts we'll do. Oftentimes we just say, hey, let's do a podcast. So we'll see you next week for sure. Bethany Hallam, thank you again. This has been the Pittsburgh Current Podcast. Have a great week.